Hey guys, welcome to another live stream of the Ballad of Garvin Hackett live screenwriting. So, for those of you who are new, let me say hello in the chat to everybody. Hello, everyone. Maybe one day someone will show up. All right, so today is day 4 of the Ballad of Garvin Hackett's feature-length screenplay. Just for those of you who might be new, what we do is we do live writing. This is live screenwriting for about 45 minutes. So before we go into it, let's do some housekeeping. If you like the tools that you see me using in this, if you like the tools that you see me using in this live stream, and you want to learn the professional grade tools that serious writers use to write, rewrite, and develop stories quickly, you can find a lecture here. It's a lecture here that I show basically the main content from a course that I teach once a year called the Screenwriting Masterclass with the nonprofit Arts Accelerator. If you don't know about Arts Accelerator, you should check them out at artsaccelerator.org, one word, .org. They do a lot of programming to help creatives develop professional creative skills. So the tools you're going to see, they're not just for screenwriting. They apply to any form of narrative storytelling, novels, comics, games, all of it. The paid lecture, which is the one that you get in the link, includes full scene breakdowns from well-known films and hands-on guidance for anyone serious about telling story. And as usual, a portion of every sale supports the Arts Accelerator, a nonprofit dedicating to developing the skills of emerging artists. So great. That's the source of the tools that you're going to see me using. So what are we doing today? Well, today we're doing the day 4. We're doing some more research on the Ballad of Garvin Hackett. So we've got a short story summary here for those of you who are new. The Ballad of Garvin Hackett is an ironic, darkly comic take on 89s. That should be 90s. Let's change that. There we go. On 90s action movies set in South Florida in 1994. Forrest Gump meets Scarface, directed by Michael Bay, except the laws of physics actually apply. And so these are a bunch of notes that are not relevant for right now. So we started on day 3. So in day 2, we got to the point where we're developing the characters and developing their arcs. And it got to a point where there was just a lack of knowledge. So you hit a wall sometimes when you're writing. And that's, let me start it. No, I'll start the timer when I'm done explaining, because I just want to time myself for the actual writing part. So with like with a lot of things, when you're writing and you run out of information, that's usually the source of writer's blocks. That's usually a sign that you should like switch the task you're doing. You want to sit with your discomfort for a while, but if you see that your discomfort is not leading to emerging insights, that may be just an informational problem. And so you generally try to switch either from character to story, right? Or in this case, to research. So we're learning more about the people in the movie to get a sense of what they might be like. And that will help us fill in their arcs and understand them a little better. So we're going to go through each character and we're going to see what's missing. And then there is a, where is it? There's a video description. I see character. Think in the notes. Let's see. Yes. So these are the outstanding questions that we're trying to answer with our research. So if you want to see where this comes from, you'll see, let's say we have here in our notes, we have Garvin's girlfriend. We don't have a name for her yet. We don't really know when attention culture started, so there's a little bit of research to do around that, because she's, seeking attention using mass media. And then what are some of the most notorious stories of women using men for personal gain fame? Because the story Garvin is basically used by every character in the story, including his girlfriend. Public embarrassment, disclosures that hurt men but help the women career-wise. So what kind of big lies or big disclosures have been done to damage careers, because at some point she's just got to betray him, right? And then we're going to look into borderline traits a little bit. And so where did we get this? We got this from, if you go to the girlfriend, we're trying to fill in a character sheet, right? And the big thing missing here is the name. We know that she's American and white. And oh wait, she's got to be pretty. Pretty. Right? And she should be blonde. But like a natural blonde. American white, natural blonde. Okay. Okay. And her game is getting attention. Or maxing attention. Attention maxing. Let's call it that, using the recent terms. Attention maxing. And she's manipulative. She's got borderline traits. And that's why we're looking into what the borderline traits might be. And then we've got some notes. Some decision. The 4 decisions that make a proactive. Okay. So we've got some other notes here. What secret does she share with Garvin? Performatively sexual but cold in private. That I'm actually going to put into the research. Because I want to know if there's a diagnosable, like what other traits or what other behaviors might be associated with, and what might be the known causes psychologically. Could be interesting. All right. And the rest of the stuff is about the interview. And yeah, I think what I'm going to do in the notes is not only using men for personal gain, but also significant historical examples of women who were complicit, claiming to be victims. Complicit. So I don't have in her arc there should be a moment where okay, I'm going to move decision 1. So she runs off with Garvin. See, this is already writing. Already just by reading and refreshing your brain, you start getting insights. So she runs off with Garvin, but slaps Garvin in the face when he tries to get physical. And then I think her second decision is to tell him to ally with Roger because it's self-serving, right? Or persuade him. And then I think definitely she can use her sexuality, right? And then she gets disappointed when he backs down. So this is good. So now we have a scene that's sort of developed here. All right. Okay. So this is excellent. Let me check. I got a notification here. 1 second. Let's see if it's important. Yeah. All right. So let's start with girlfriend's name. And for that, we'll move over to, because this is important. Names are kind of important. Let's move over to the research pane and see what we got. All right. So give me a name of a girl who would have been approximately 20 to 23 years old in South Florida. She would have a white American background. So it would be a baby name, a list of baby names that would be popular 23 years before 1994. So I want to say roughly 1970. What were common baby names for females that were white Americans in South Florida at that time? and we're looking for a lower socioeconomic class. So maybe a mother who was slightly lower class and a father who was maybe upper class, and then there's like an illegitimate child. Let's see. Because that's how I imagine it, right? She's got the sort of determination of an elite, but but the ambition of an elite, which she comes from lower. So oftentimes that's like a single mom, basically, who got together with a high status guy or a from a higher social class, and so she maybe inherited that spunk. Let's see. So it says here she would have been born between 1971 and 1974. So in 1970s, naming trends split significantly along class lines. Lower class naming trends in the South leaned heavily into modern, trendy, phonetic, or slightly country-sounding names. Often in Y or I, upper class families lean toward traditional, timeless Anglo-Saxon patrician names. Several common name options fit this. Okay, let's see. If the mother leaned into trends, Tammy, Tracy, maybe Tanya. Yep. Dawn is interesting. Lori or Cindy. I kind of like Tammy. Tammy really. Yeah, Tammy just feels right, right? Okay. What if the mother was aspirational? Let's see. So we got Tiffany, Crystal, and Heather. I'm going for Tammy. Tammy just sounds like slightly low class, in more striving, right? Because the name has to set her, set her in a psychologically. And then the mega hits. Okay, these are universally common names: Jennifer, Lisa, and Michelle. The best selection: Tammy Lynn, mother's last name. That's a good one. And then Tiffany Dawn is actually pretty good. I wonder, Tammy Lynn is funny, but what about Tiffany Dawn? Like, what if it was Tammy Dawn? Like, nobody used that. It's like the mother had poor taste. That's funny, Tammy Dawn. But I think I'm gonna go with Tammy Lynn. So let's see. I think we're good. Let's go back to the writing, and I think we've got our name. Boom. Tammy Lynn. Perfect name. So let's go. Tammy Lynn. Now we need a last name. So let's see what we got there. So let's do some research. Okay, what about her mother's last name? What's a good last name? Again, white, lower class, South Florida, 1970, common name. And we need her mother's name too, because she might refer to her mother. Let's see. So historically British Anglo-Saxon. Miller, Taylor, Baker, Tucker. Tucker. I don't know why Tucker makes me laugh. Simple, grounded, monosyllable, Tammy Lynn Holt, Bush, Cox, Tammy Lynn Cox. Cox is an interesting name. Tammy Lynn Hayes. Tammy Lynn Hayes actually sounds like a made-up name. Tammy Lynn Davis, Griffin, Simmons, Nichols, Hicks. Tammy Lynn Hicks. Oh, that's funny. Tammy Lynn Hicks. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Hicks. Hicks is pretty good. So let's go with Hicks. So go back here. Let's get the back here. We'll go Tamlin Hicks. Okay. So we're good there. And then we need her mother. So her mother probably would have been young when she had her. I'm going to say maybe a teen mom, right? Yeah, let's try that. So let's see. Okay, what about her mom? She would have been lower working class, white, South Florida, and she would have been, let's say, underage when she had her, like 17. So we need a name that would have been a common name for somebody born 17 years before. So that would have been putting her around 53 if she was from 1970 to 54. What are the common names from that era that might apply to her mother? Let's see. So this is the baby boom. And Breezy, Deborah Hicks, Brenda Hicks, Mary Hicks, Debbie Hicks, Patty Hicks, so Donna, Sharon, Linda Hicks. The second most popular name of 1954, Mary. I'm going to go with Linda. I mean, Debbie sounds good too. I'll go with Debbie. Let's go with Debbie Hicks. All right, so let's see, notes. We go, mother, Debbie Hicks. We can maybe do some research later about her mom, but it was 17 when she had her. Okay. Cool. That's the only thing we need to go in right now, because you don't want to get too far off, too many tangents, right? So when did Paris Hilton become famous, and what was the attention culture in 1994? Okay, this is a good one. So let's see what we can do here. So do a little research. Okay, let's change topics to attention culture. So before Paris Hilton in 1994, before influencers, and after the movie star craze of the 1950s and 60s. So we're in 1994. What would have been the means for a young woman to try to claim real estate in the attention economy the way Paris Hilton did later, and the way the Kardashians did later? What would have been the equivalent kind of behaviors in 1994? What would have been the kind of platforms that you would try to dominate in order to access an audience and become known? Let's see what it says. I'll open it up here for you. So without the internet as a mass media tool, smartphones, or reality TV, which was in its absolute infancy, a woman couldn't just broadcast herself from her bedroom. This is true. To claim real estate in the attention economy, you couldn't bypass the traditional media gatekeepers, you had to manipulate them. To build a Paris Hilton or Kardashian-style persona, a young woman would have to navigate a very specific set of platforms and behaviors. Okay, the 3: sleaze and glossy print media. Print was king. If you wanted the public to know your name, you needed to get into the physical hands of people standing in supermarket checkout lines. Tabloids, right? Tabloids This is perfect. They had massive circulation. Perfect. The micro society columns. Okay, local newspapers, printed daily columns detailing who was partying where. All right. Well, that's probably not going to be Tammy Lynn Hicks because she's with a fugitive, right? Let's see. Daytime talk shows. Nice. So, Ricky Lake. Great. And we've got like Roger Gust's show, which I was going to call it Flashpoint, but I think it should be called Panic Button, right? Just the panic button. I don't know. That makes me laugh. Let me make sure I write that down because I don't think I have that written down. Let me go back to here and go Roger. Okay. Oh, Panic Room. Yeah, but I think, I don't know. Panic Room or Panic Button? What do you guys think? I don't know. Okay, maybe Panic Button. I'll ask. Let me ask Claude. Let's go back. Research. All right. What's a better name for a 1990s tabloid crime TV show? Flashpoint, Panic Room, or the Panic Button? What about Panic Button? Let's see. So Panic Button skews more towards hidden camera format than crime. Flashpoint's like somebody's about to get arrested. If you're dealing with Panic Button, if you're set on Panic Button, leaning into a more chaotic cop-style street-level format would make the name feel at home. Yeah, it's a tabloid, like live crime journalist who keeps trying to get to the crime scenes as early as possible. So there would be some element of cops, but without the cops' permission or sanction. I don't know if sanction makes sense in this context, but hopefully Claude will understand. Panic Button is better. Reactive energy of someone racing to a scene before the tape goes up. Nice double meaning. The journalist is the Panic Button, the person who shows up uninvited and makes everyone nervous. Cops, victims, bystanders. Flashpoint is more authoritative sounding, which would suit a show with police cooperation. Panic Button has the right amount of scrappiness and desperation for a journalist. Okay, Panic Button. I'm going to go with Panic Button for now. Let's see. I don't know why, because it made me laugh more. Let's see. Panic Button. Better. Okay, back to where we were. Going into Garvin's girlfriend. So, yeah, so her goal is to get on the tabloids. That is her goal. So, let's get Tammy Lynn Hicks. And then attention goals, tabloid, supermarket, and reality TV. Not reality TV. What did they say? Let's see. Let me go over to the research tab. Go to Gemini. Tabloid talk shows. Okay. So we got the tabloid talk show. So let's see. Go into the writing, write that down. Tabloid talk show. Okay. Let's see, Ricky Lake show, Jerry Springer, Jenny Jones, and Geraldo. Scandal and shock behavior. Okay, so appearing on Ricky Lake to talk about your controversial relationships was exactly. Yep, good. So that's perfect. And so she's going to appear on Panic Button. All right, so we're making progress. Let's see. So we got that one. Okay, so what are some of the most notorious stories? I think rather than betraying secrets, I think significant historical examples of women who are complicit claiming to be victims. I think that would be more accurate. And then if there's embarrassing disclosures, that would be useful too. So let's see. So we'll go to research. Boom, boom. Let's see. So historically, and you can take this for whatever historical time range you want, what are some real world examples that are particularly engaging about women who were either complicit or had questionable relationships allied with men, notorious men, who then turned on those men and shared publicly damning or embarrassing information about them and framed themselves as victims? What are some historical examples of this that are engaging and notorious? Let's see. Let's see. We could do some quick historical research. The dynamic you're describing where a woman is highly willing, embedded, and often... Oh, let me get a timer going. So, let's see. So frame yourself as a blameless victim is one of the most riveting tropes in history. When the mutually assured destruction contract of a toxic relationship breaks, the fallout makes for incredible historical drama. Marguerite Albert, the courtesan and the prince and the murderer. Marguerite Albert was a fiercely ambitious French courtesan who specialized in elite, powerful men. During World War I, she became the mistress of the young Prince of Wales, the future King Edward VIII. Marguerite was well aware of her position. She engaged in a passionate, highly volatile affair with the prince, collecting a treasure trove of deeply personal, sexually explicit, and politically indiscreet love letters he wrote to her. She used her proximity to royalty to climb into high society, eventually marrying a wealthy Egyptian aristocrat. Okay. The turn in the victim framing. In 1923, during a violent argument at the Savoy Hotel in London, Marguerite shot her husband dead. Facing the gallows for murder, she played an absolute masterclass of a card. She quietly let the British crown know that she still had the prince's scandalous letters. The royal family panicked. To protect the future king, they cut a deal. In court, the prosecution intentionally tanked the case, and Marguerite played the ultimate victim of a brutal exotic Eastern husband. She was fully acquitted of murder. Later, she subtly blackmailed the royal family, trading the prince's damning letters for a massive, comfortable payout that funded the rest of her lavish life. Pretty slick. I like that. So, the secret. It could be documentation. Let's take a look at that. So let's go writing. And let's go to girlfriend. So the question, what secret does she share with Garvin? And I can put knowledge of Joelle's network, because Garvin knows that, right? And telling the rival gang, right? Or just telling the truth. How would she know though that his dad was killed by Whitey? I don't think she would know that. What if she did? What if she spoke to Roger, right? These are all things she can do. Okay. So I like that. Let's see. What else can history tell us about women? Let's see. We got who betrayed and blackmailed. We got 4. Let's see what we got. Nan Britton, the president's secret ward. Nan Britton had a decades-long obsession with Warren G. Harding, who eventually became the 29th president of the United States. She became his long-term mistress, even having a child with him while he was in office. Complicity. Nan was deeply embedded in Harding's corrupt Ohio gang White House. She routinely hid in coat closets in the Oval Office to have trysts with him, accepted illicit cash, and happily played along with the intense secrecy required to protect a sitting president. Oh, I like this hiding in the closet, hiding in a coat closet to have a tryst. I don't know why, that's kind of funny. Let's see. I'll put that in as a note because that's good. Let's see if there's... So I think there's something there about the performativeness. Like, she kind of has maybe a kink where she gets turned on by the danger. Let's see. Going back to the research. The turn in the victim framing. In 1923, Harding died suddenly. They cut off Nan's financial support and refused to acknowledge her child. Furious and broke, Nan flipped. In 1927, she published a bombshell book titled The President's Daughter. It was the first ever mass market celebrity tell-all book. She shared humiliating, highly specific details about having sex with the president in White House closets and framed herself as a naive, pure-hearted girl who had been preyed upon and abandoned by a powerful man. Okay, yeah. Tammy Lynn is a stripper. That's her job. I can't imagine... Actually, let me just... If I can't imagine it, maybe somebody else can imagine it. So, let me do a little research on that, like what her day job is. But Tammy Lynn is a stripper for now. Obviously, her real name isn't Tammy Lynn, so we need like a stripper name, so I don't want to complicate it too much. Let me see what we can do there with a little bit of research. Let me just... I'll update my notes here. So, stripper adjacent job. Something that might be more interesting because strippers kind of like... It's kind of a trope, right? So you want to see what you can do that's a little different. Okay. Back to the research. Okay. Virginia Hill, the queen of the gangsters. Virginia Hill was a glamorous, drop-dead gorgeous woman from a poor background who became the ultimate mob wife in the 30s and 40s. Virginia Hill. She was longtime girlfriend of Bugsy Siegel. Okay. Who built the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas. Complicity. Virginia wasn't just a passive observer. She was a major player. She acted as a money mule for the mob, laundering millions of dollars of dirty cash through Swiss bank accounts. She threw lavish parties for murderers and ran the highest echelons of organized crime. The turn and the victim framing. When Bugsy skimmed too much money from the mob, his partner shot him through the window of Virginia's Beverly Hills home in 1947. Sensing the wind was changing, Virginia fled. She was called to testify in the televised Kefauver hearings. The first time everyday Americans saw the mafia on TV. She gave a legendary theatrical performance. She wore an elegant fur coat, cursed out the senators, and claimed she was just a poor Southern girl who had no idea where the money came from and was just a victim of bad men with pretty smiles. Oh my God. That's funny. She painted herself as an innocent romantic while secretly fleeing the country with millions of dollars of the mob's missing cash, leaving the remaining gangsters to face the federal heat. Oh, it should be in her... Tammy Lynn is the one who should tell Garvin to take the money. right? So that way they think it's a robbery. This is a good idea. So let's see, going back to the writing. Come on, Tammy. Okay. I'm going to question mark that. Let's go here. Okay. And I'm just going to put Virginia here because I want to look. Okay. And then she should tell Garvin to take the money. Because mobsters have lots of money. Okay. That's the idea. Okay, this is good. We're learning about creating her character a little bit. All right, let's see what else we got in the research. Sophia Lorenza. 17th century Paris. During the reign of King Louis XIV, a massive scandal broke out called Affair of the Poisons, involving witchcraft, murder, and the elite aristocracy. At the center of it was La Voisson, a fortune teller and abortionist who sold poison. One of her top clients was Madame de Montespan, the king's official, highly powerful mistress. The complicity in the bond. Montespan had been complicit in hiring La Voisson to conduct dark rituals, love potions, and eventually plotting to poison the king's newer, younger mistress to keep her grip on power. In a turn, when the police arrested La Voisson's network, several of the lower class women involved realized they were facing execution. They immediately turned on the high society women who hired them. They leaked everything to the investigators, detailing exactly how Madame de Montespan had participated in black masses. Montespan immediately pivot-framed herself. She used her remaining influence with the king to claim she was the target of a massive malicious conspiracy by lower-class witches trying to bring down the crown. The king, desperate to avoid a public trial that would reveal his court was full of poisoners, covered up the evidence against Montespan, though he quietly exiled her to a convent for the rest of her life. In every case, these women utilized the exact gender bias of their respective eras: naive girl, grieving widow, a helpless victim of a brute. So helpless victim of a brute is definitely Tammy Lynn, right? And then to convince the public and the courts that they had no agency in the crime, despite having been active, enthusiastic partners right up until the moment it was no longer profitable. Bingo. Okay, and now let's see what else we have. Portray yourself. Okay, let's go back to our notes. And so we got the notorious public disclosures. Let's see. Should we do borderline traits or stripper adjacent job? Anybody in the comments want to chime in? All right. So let's see. Any ghosts in the comments? So let's see. Stripper adjacent job. Oh, shoot. My timer never started. It's okay. I have a clock here. So we got about 10 minutes to see if we can get through Gavin's girlfriend, Tammy Lynn. So let's talk about borderline traits. And performatively sexual, but cold in private. I think those are two we could hit. Let's try that. Okay. Okay, now let's talk about borderline traits and how they manifest in relationships. And I'm specifically interested, if it doesn't have to do exactly with borderline traits, what is the clinical, if there is one, definition for the kind of behavior where a woman would be performatively sexual? In other words, she would have a male companion that in front of other people, she behaves in a very possessive way, like as if they're dating, but then in private, she's cold and like not sexual. So she's very sexual in public, but not sexual in private. She goes cold in private. And if that's related at all to borderline traits, if it's not, I'm curious what other kind of psychological conditions might that behavior be related to? And so what I'm doing now is I'm trying to get into the psychology of Tammy Lynn. I'm trying to understand why someone would behave this way. Because we've seen the tropes, but it's kind of interesting to understand what the backgrounds are generally of this kind of character. See, the behavior you're describing where someone is highly performative, seductive, and possessive in public but turns cold, distant, and non-sexual in private is a fascinating and complex interpersonal dynamic. While it can absolutely manifest in someone with borderline personality disorder, clinically is more classically aligned with another cluster B personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder. It can also be a byproduct of specific attachment styles or defense mechanism known as splitting. Here is how psychiatry breaks down the specific publicly hot, privately cold behavior and how it connects to different psychological conditions. The direct clinical connection, histrionic personality disorder. If you are looking for the exact clinical definition of performative sexuality, histrionic personality disorder is the textbook match. There we go. People with HPD have an overwhelming need to be the center of attention, there it is, and use their physical appearance and sexuality as their primary tools to achieve it. The public hot manifestation, the clinical trait, inappropriate sexual seductiveness or provocativeness. The behavior in public, the male companion is treated as an accessory to enhance her status or image. By being highly sexual, affectionate, and possessive of him in front of others, she ensures that all eyes are on her. It projects a specific image. Look at how desired I am. Look at how passionate my life is. The intimacy isn't about actually connecting with the man. It is a performance for the audience. Okay. The private, the clinical trait, shallow and rapidly shifting expression of emotions. The behavior, once the audience is gone and the bedroom door closes, the motivation for the performance vanishes because the sexuality was a tool for attention rather than a genuine desire for physical or emotional intimacy. She goes completely cold. In fact, clinicians note that people with HPD are often paradoxically fearful of genuine intimacy and may become frigid, distant, or angry when real, unvarnished emotional or physical closeness is expected of them. Interesting. Borderline and how this connects to borderline. Borderline and histrionic personality disorders are in the same family, cluster B, and they frequently co-occur. If a woman with BPD exhibits this behavior, it is usually driven by two core BPD traits, the fear of abandonment and splitting. Public possessiveness as an anchor. Someone with BPD suffers from a chronic, terrifying fear of being abandoned. In public, where other women or distractions exist, her anxiety spikes. Her intense performative possessiveness in front of others in an unconscious way to mark her territory and reassure herself that he belongs to her and won't leave. Private coldness and splitting, idealization versus devaluation. BPD is characterized by black and white thinking. In public, she may idealize a relationship. In private, the crushing weight of intimacy can trigger fear of engulfment or fear that he will eventually reject her. To protect herself, her brain splits him into the bad category. She suddenly withdraws, goes cold, and pushes him away to preemptively protect herself from being hurt. Oh, that's interesting. So that's interesting. So the splitting is the good and bad. That's kind of cool. Okay, other psychological conditions. Let me write that down though, because that's kind of neat. It's cool to have a term for it. So okay, splitting, and I'll put histrionic. Okay. Oops. No, that's the wrong one. Let's see. Let me just paste the right text in. Copy. Hopefully that works. Let's see. There it is. Cool. All right, I got that little note. Let's see what else we got from our research. Other psychological. If this behavior isn't tied to a full personality disorder, it can be explained by a few others. Narcissistic personality, trophy or supply in public, as she acts highly sexual and possessive because having a desirable partner who is visibly obsessed with her boosts her ego and public image. In private, once the partner has served the purpose, she treats them with indifference, withholding affection as a form of control or punishment. Fearful avoidant. This is a non-clinical level. This is a classic manifestation of disorganized attachment style. They want love and validation, but they are deeply terrified of actual intimacy. Public displays are safe. Private moments feel incredibly dangerous, causing them to panic and emotionally freeze or shut down to keep the partner at a distance. If a woman has a history of trauma or abuse, she may have learned early in life that her only value to others lies in her sexuality. She performs sexually in public because it is the only way she knows how to secure a man's presence and validation. However, because actual sex and private intimacy feel threatening, triggering, or performatively exhausting, she shuts down entirely when the pressure to genuinely connect arises behind closed doors. So if a character or person is doing this, they're usually using the male companion as a prop, right? The primary goal is attention and vanity. If the primary goal is managing terror of being abandoned and overwhelmed, okay. In both cases, the public sexuality is a mask. Okay. So now I'm going to ask it a specific question about my character. Okay, the character that I'm writing uh, was inspired by a Louis C.K. sketch of a waitress where they flirted and then they got together in private. And when he made passes at her, she was sort of fighting him off, like telling him no. So he backed down. And then he saw her again at the restaurant the next day, and she was like, "What happened last night? Why didn't we do it?" And then he was like, the joke is like she basically wanted him to rape her, right? Like to be very violent with her, or more violent than he felt comfortable being. And so that sort of inspired this character who's like a very, very attention seeking, but she's very cold in private. However, if she's in like danger, or if there's a conflict between them, that is what actually gets her turned on. So I'm just wondering if there's like one condition that encompasses this, or if this is a cluster of disorders, or what could potentially motivate this from a psychologist's point of view for a character to behave this way. Let's see what it says. Oh my God, psychologically accurate. Let's see. You have layered a highly complex, psychologically accurate, and dark dynamic into this character. The transition from a Louis C.K. sketch about consensual non-consent fantasies to a character who is publicly performative, privately cold, but sexually activated only by danger or conflict is a gold mine for character development. That's what I thought. It'd be a fun character, right? From a clinical psychologist's point of view, this behavior is not usually just one single disorder. Instead, it's a classic cluster of traits where specific personality disorder intersect with severe trauma bonding mechanisms, arousal templates, and defense mechanisms. Here's how the psychologist would diagnose and explain the hidden engine driving his character. Borderline personality disorder with masochistic features. While her public behavior is very histrionic, her private behavior is deeply characteristic of borderline personality disorder. Specifically what older psychiatric texts call masochistic or self-defeating. Okay. Self-defeating. Interesting. Okay. The conflict is the proof of love. For someone with BPD, stable, calm, and polite intimacy feels like a lie. If a man is gentle and backs down when she says no, her internal psychology doesn't register as respect. She registers as indifference or rejection. He doesn't want me enough to fight for me. When a male companion becomes aggressive, angry, or dominant, it provides her with the emotional skin conductance. What is emotional skin conductance? The high stakes, the shouting, the physical tension feel real to her. In her mind, conflict equals passion. That could be interesting if like her mother was actually very combative. I guess that's how that would be formed, right? Is some sort of parental, I don't know, let's see. Arousal of near abandonment. Nothing activates a borderline character sexuality faster than the threat of losing the partner. When they are fighting or when she pushes him to the brink of rage, the fear of abandonment spikes. That terror releases a massive flood of adrenaline, which her brain instantly misinterprets and routes into sexual arousal. Interesting. The behavioral explanation. The trauma reenactment and ergophobia. If a psychologist were analyzing her history, they would immediately look for childhood trauma, specifically sexual abuse or severe emotional volatility in her household. Trauma reenactment. This is the psychological phenomenon where a person unconsciously seeks out or engineers a situation that mimics their original trauma in an attempt to master it. Oh, yeah, that sounds familiar. If she grew up in an environment where physical affection was always tied to violence, anger, or danger, her brain permanently wired those two things together. To her, safety is boring and deadening, while danger is vibrant and alive. Well, that would explain the desire for Garvin, right? Sexualization of fear. In normal psychology, fear and sexual arousal are handled by the same autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic. Both cause a racing heart, shallow breathing, and heightened sense. If a character has a trauma history, the wiring can become crossed. She literally cannot get aroused by a nice guy asking for consent because her body needs the cortisol and adrenaline of a threat to jumpstart her libido. The no as a psychological safety net. Louis C.K. dynamic you mentioned, saying no but wanting the man to push past it, is clinically understood as consensual non-consent, or rape fantasy, which is remarkably common but amplified to a pathological degree in this character. For your character, this serves two major psychological functions. Absolution of guilt. If she says no and he forces himself on her or becomes highly aggressive, she is no longer responsible for the sex. In her internal narrative, she remains pure, innocent, and the victim. She gets the sexual release and the intense rush she craves without having to bear the psychological shame of being a sexual or bad girl, a shame often instilled by lower class, religious, or abusive upbringings. Testing the partner's boundaries. When she says no and fights him off, she is unconsciously testing him. If he backs down, he fails her subconscious test of manliness or desire. If he gets angry, aggressive, or asserts dominance, he passes the test by matching her internal level of chaos. Interesting. How to pitch this character's file. If a psychiatrist were sitting writing a case file on her, it would look like this: borderline personality disorder with prominent histrionic and masochistic features, a profound inability to tolerate emotional stillness. She experiences calm intimacy as a void or a form of emotional death. The mechanism: she uses public seduction to feed her ego, but shuts down in private because genuine intimacy requires vulnerability, which terrifies her. She converts fear, anger, conflict into sexual currency because dominance and submission are the only relational languages she truly trusts. So this makes her incredibly compelling, albeit tragic character. Nah, she's not too tragic. She comes out okay in the end. She's alive, right? Garvin is the one who gets consumed. She was already broken when she met him, unfortunately. All right, so I'm gonna write this down, but there was something here that I found interesting. Not that, not the desire, not the psycho. Oh yeah, consensual non-consent. That's kind of an interesting concept. But there was something else here. If she grew up in an environment where physical affection was always tied to violence, anger, or danger, her brain permanently wired those two things together. So let me just write this down. Take this note on his girlfriend. Let's put it at the bottom here. The diagnosis. I don't like to get too psychological because psychology is kind of like, it's got its own issues. But it's nice to know how they would see it. It can be kind of a language for describing behavior. But this is the one I want to talk about. If she grew up in an environment where physical affection was always tied to violence. Give me an example of this. What precise behavior would a person like this have experienced? Boom. So I want to see, to understand how a child's brain permanently wires physical affection and intimacy to violence, you have to look at the day-to-day lived experience of a highly volatile, abusive, or chaotic household. In psychology, this is often driven by a concept known as fear-conditioned attachment. Okay. Okay. The makeup effect. The precise behavior: a volatile father or mother flies into a rage, screaming at the young girl, throwing things, or physically beating her. Once the rage passes and the parent cools down, they are overcome with immense guilt. The wiring: the parent scoops up the crying child, hugs her tightly, kisses her forehead, cries, and says, "I'm so sorry. You know, mommy, daddy loves you more than anything, right? I only do that because I care about you." The psychological result: to a developing brain, the physical relief, warmth, and validation of love only happen right after a life-threatening surge of adrenaline and fear. The brain learns the danger. Oh, so it's basically conditioning. It's associative conditioning. Got it. Okay. Oh my God, this is so good. So I'm gonna put that into her past. This is excellent. Okay. And the other one that I really want here that looks really good is aggressive, volatile father might show affection by wrestling too hard, putting the child in painful headlocks, pinching her cheeks until she cries, or squeezing her too tightly while laughing. If the girl complains or cries, the parent mocks her or gets angry, saying, "Oh, don't be a crybaby. I'm just playing with you. I'm showing how much I love you." This is so cool because they're basically associative connections in behavioral, from a behavioral lens. That's cool. So that is something that I sort of feel more comfortable with understanding from a sort of Skinner type, right? Paradigm or Skinner type framework. And then having to earn love through submission or anger. The parents are screaming at each other, smashing plates. Okay, the girl is terrified. To calm the water, she learns to step into the line of fire, taking the blame, letting the parents scream at her, or enduring a punishment quietly without fighting back. Once she submits and accepts the anger, the parent calms down, pats her head, and rewards her with temporary warmth or approval. The parents are screaming at each other. She learns that submitting to a man's rage is how you maintain a bond. Being a victim becomes her superpower for keeping people close. It's kind of interesting. I'm not sure that one applies as much, but I'll put it in to a note. I'm going to whittle these down, right? Not all of these are going to make it into Tammy Lynn, but it's good to know. Let's see. By the time this girl reaches her 20s, her brain's pleasure and survival centers are entirely fused. When a good guy takes her out, treats her gently, and backs off, the moment she says no, her nervous system feels absolutely nothing because there's no adrenaline, no cortisol, no threat. Her brain interprets the situation as dead or boring. She literally cannot register it as romantic or sexual because her prerequisite chemical cocktail, fear, is missing. However, when a man gets aggressive, corners her, yells at her, or refuses to take no for an answer, her childhood wiring lights up like a Christmas tree. Her heart races, her pupils dilate, and her adrenaline spikes. Her adult brain misinterprets the survival-driven panic response as intense, passionate sexual attraction. She feels alive only when she is recreating the exact terrifying moment of her childhood. This is kind of an interesting insight. Okay. So now I'm gonna push the boundary here of the AI, because this sounds like almost too good to be true. It's like such a tight story, right? Okay, this sounds like a nice, tight, explanatory story, but sometimes these stories it's almost too clean. What is exactly the empirical evidence for this? Not like some psychodynamic categorization literary experiment, but is there actual empirical data that underpins these characteristics and behaviors? Let's see. So real human psychology is messy. There is robust empirical data that underpins the specific behavior, the crossover of fear, aggression, and sexual arousal, particularly in individuals with borderline traits or trauma histories. The actual empirical data comes from three distinct scientific fields: neurology, neurobiology, epidemiological behavior studies, and experimental sexology. So, all right, this is kind of neat. All right, let's see. We'll come back to this, though, because it's a little bit off. At least what I'm curious about is that there does seem to be some evidence. You always want to push the AI a little bit to give you something. You don't want to just take its word. Let's see what I got. So we got the borderline traits. The last thing we need for Garvin's girlfriend is the stripper adjacent job. Okay. So let's do that. Okay. So Tammy Lynn, given her background and the character psychology that we've discussed, I imagine her working as a stripper, but that seems kind of like an easy trope. So I'm curious, what other stripper adjacent jobs might Tammy Lynn do or be suited for psychologically in 1994? Let's see. Making her a stripper is the most obvious path. It needs a job that satisfies specific condition, high visibility, public validation, high chaos, hypersexualized environment. But she has to maintain a sense of power, denial, or emotional distance. The shock girl or shooter vendor. So a major fixture of this era was a shot girl, a woman who walks the club floor with trays of test tube shots or specialized shooters, selling them directly to the patrons. Required wearing highly provocative, revealing outfits, flirty, aggressive with wealthy patrons, and weaponizing to get men to overpay for cheap liquor. The psychological fit: it provides a massive fit of public attention and male validation, but unlike stripping, there is a transactional barrier. Okay, a bikini contest or calendar circuit competitor. Should probably be doing both, right? 1990s, before Instagram modeling, there was a massive, highly lucrative circuit of swimsuit pageants and calendar searches sponsored by brands. The work: Tammy Lynn wouldn't have a steady 9 to 5. Instead, she would hustle the corporate sponsorship bikini contest circuit across bars. She would supplement this by working as a promotional model at boat shows, car conventions, and liquor brand activations. Huh. A VIP hostess at a trendy South Beach club. Okay. An elite bikini lingerie made for a private service. Huh. Yeah. So, I don't know. The elite bikini lingerie maid. Oh, she could be an accomplice, right? That's one thing she could do. Because she gets excited by this stuff. So maybe if we write in that we go to accomplice level, right? Accomplice behavior. And we can go here to set up a hit, right? So that would be one. Let's go back to our research and see what else we got. Bikini contest is interesting. No steady 9 to 5, which would make sense. Okay. So there would be this sort of a lot of backstage stuff, basically being like a bikini model. That's maybe, yeah, that could work. And then I don't like the VIP hostess. I'm not crazy about the shot girl. I wonder if there would be overlap between strippers and women in these bikini lingerie private service and bikini contest or calendar girl circuit competitors. Let's see. There was a massive, highly fluid revolving door between strippers, bikini contest circuit, and private lingerie services. But behind the scenes, they were part of the same exact ecosystem. They shared the same talent pool, the same management networks, and the same clientele. The overlap functioned across several layers. The hustle, the weekend versus the weekday split. A woman might strip at a high-end club like Solid Gold or Tootsie's on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday because that's when the high roller cash is flowing. But then on Tuesday, she might pick up a shift for a lingerie maid service to make an extra $100 cash. The day job shield, stripping carried a heavy social stigma. Winning a Hawaiian Tropic preliminary contest or working for a lingerie maid agency gave these women legitimate, socially acceptable cover story. Oh, this is great. Okay. Let's see. Penrod's, okay, would host weekly bikini contests to draw in massive crowds of men. The promoters of these contests actually recruited from local strip clubs because they knew these women already had the stage presence, the bodies, and the lack of inhibition required to work the crowd in a thong. Bikini contests frequent local radio DJs, wealthy businessmen, and strip club owners. A good performance in a bikini contest at Beach Bar was often how a girl got recruited into a higher paying, more exclusive gentleman's club. Interesting. So I really like the weekend versus weekday split. Okay. And the day job shield. Okay. I'm down with that. That makes sense. So let's add that. Boom. Cool. So there we go. I think we've got everything for Garvin's girlfriend, which is Tammy Lynn. We have a name for her and everything. We still need a stage name, but okay, I think we're gonna call it here. This is like a pretty good section of work in terms of doing research and just sort of getting some raw material for this character. And we'll eventually come back and integrate all this stuff, make choices about what we want to keep and what we don't want to keep. But we can make a small bio about her past from this and get enough so that we could give this to an actor and they would be able to sort of resonate with the character psychologically. So anyway, that was it. I hope you found this useful. And please join us in the future where the next one will probably start looking into Joel and maybe Garvin himself and get more sort of a glimpse of what 1994 South Florida might have felt like if you were living in it, and through the lives of the people who lived in the and who ran in these circles. And again, if you like the tools you're seeing here, please check out the description. There's a link to Gumroad lecture where I describe the tools that I use to write, and they're the tools that are very helpful for writers and professionals to write and rewrite scripts rapidly and at high quality. And this isn't only for screenwriting, it also works for any kind of narrative storytelling, whether you're writing a comic book or whether you're writing a video game. Yeah, hopefully, I think Garvin Hackett's final form is kind of like a graphic novel, but with realistic images like photographs, which is something that has been prohibitively expensive until today. This is like a new form of art that's possible now because of AI. And so I think that's probably where I would go with it. I don't see this being a movie, mainly because of the way the economics work around movies these days. We don't even know like what movies are going to look like by the time this is done. But I would love to make this into sort of a photorealistic graphic novel, and that could be a lot of fun. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you continue to come back and stick around for the ride. With that, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for watching.